Good afternoon. How's your day been? Welcome back to Gooner Fanzine TV. I'm absolutely honoured to have a very, very special guest in the form of Lee Dixon. Thanks so much for your time, Lee.
My pleasure, mate. Anytime.
Oh, really, really appreciate it. We'll be obviously talking about Amy Lawrence's brilliant book, 89, Arsenal's greatest moment, basically. So we're going to have a bit of a chat about the season, obviously the climax of the season at Anfield itself, and what Lee sort of remembers of that season as well. So what a season that was. You obviously joined Arsenal in February '88. I actually remember going to your debut against Luton Town and remember you watching you bomb up and down the right wing.
There wasn't a lot of defending going on. That was to come later on when George taught me how to defend. But yeah, that was a special day because I'd been at the club since, as you said, since January, February, and then I was cup tied because I'd played a couple of games for Stoke in the Littlewoods Cup, and obviously Arsenal was still doing well and got to the final. So it was a little bit held back from. I kept saying to George, any chance of me playing a game, and he was like, "Well, you know, I've got to play the team that's going to play in the Littlewoods Cup." So it took a while for me to make the debut, but then he called me in one Thursday morning and said, "Look, I'm going to play you on Saturday," and it was, as you said, Luton Town, and that was the start of, you know, to play in the first division as it was then was like a dream come true because I never thought that would happen. You know, I was always sort of trying to get to the next level, and it took a while, and to play in the first division and play for such a brilliant club like Arsenal was a dream come true, and then what went after that was even better.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got to ask, what was your first sort of initial reaction when you walked through the marble halls at Arsenal?
Well, I kind of I was in shock for 3 or 4 months leading up to me signing because there was rumours that Arsenal were sniffing around, but nothing happened. I knew they were coming to every game that I played in because I knew the ticket girl, and I used to say, anybody from Arsenal here? And they used to say, oh yeah, they've got 3 people here, 2 people here. So Pat Rice came, Steve Burtonshaw came, George came, everybody came, Geordie Armstrong, they all came to watch me, but then all left and nothing happened. So it was but they were just doing what George did, and his due diligence on a player was forensic at times. They wanted to see you playing in every sort of up and down that the club had. So when you were playing well, he wanted to watch then. Wanted to watch when the club was winning, how I performed then. When the club was losing, what did that effect have on me as an individual? And also when the team was doing well and I was playing poorly. So they would watch you over 6 months' time, you know, and over that period they'd get a real assessment and a cross section of your character. So that George did that with everybody, and sure enough, it all went quiet. And then a few weeks later, I got the call from Mick Mills saying that George had been on the phone, they'd accepted a bid, and go down and make a name for yourself. So, and it was only the second time I'd ever been to London. The first time was when I was at college. I went down to watch an England game with a load of mates on a coach. Went down to Soho, hung around in a bar somewhere, got really drunk, watched an England game, and went back. So it was slightly different the second time round, meeting George in his office and kind of signing what turned out to be the best signature I've ever put on any piece of paper ever, and it still remains so.
Fantastic. I mean, again, I've got to ask, what was George like in that initial meeting?
He was horrible. No, he was. I mean, I've said this many times, but I turned Arsenal down the first time. It wasn't an official, I'm not signing for you, but I was brainwashed a little bit by Mick Mills about how much money they were going to pay wages-wise, because I was wet behind the ears. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have an agent. George was a very intimidating figure in his Daimler Sovereign at Watford Gap service station, and I got in his car and he sold me the club. He didn't need to, but this is what we're going to do. We're going to get rid of all the he called them prima donnas, which was perhaps a bit unfair, but the likes of Charlie Nicholas and those people, he said, I want a young, hungry team. You're part of that. Nigel Winterburn, I'm going to sign Steve Bold. And so he kind of, and then he got out the car and said, right, lovely to have you aboard. And I kind of said, well, we haven't really talked about wages. And Mick Mills had told me that I should ask for £1,000 a week, which I was on 350 at Stoke. So I just sort of threw that figure at him, and he couldn't believe the greed of this boy from Stoke. I didn't know what I was doing. I was giving bad information. So I said, look, and George walked off and said, the deal's off. You know, you're not. I've got your character all wrong. And I went back to Stoke with Mick Mills, and the deal was off as far as everybody was concerned. But I pushed it, and I said, look, I need to ring George up and go down the next day. And I went down, and as you mentioned, the marble halls. Once I got to the stadium, and I walked up the marble halls and saw Herbert Chapman looking at me, I made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to leave until I'd signed the contract. I couldn't let this opportunity go. So I knocked on George's door and came in, and he said, I'll sign, give me the contract, I'll sign now. I don't care what the money is. And he went, that's what I wanted to hear. And then he gave me a bit of my sign for £700 a week, I think. And so he gave me a bit back, and he was convinced then that I was the right type of player that he wanted, a hungry, naive to a certain extent, certainly defensively, and he taught me how to play.
Absolutely. And that summer, that was a sort of burgeoning of talent that was coming together, allied with hard work. Can you remember what the pre-season was like before 88, 89?
Yeah, it was hard. George had a set routine about what he wanted to do. First few days was very little football. We would run every morning, get the balls out in the afternoon, and the running was hard. I'd been used to hard pre-seasons anyway, but this was particularly hard. And he took us to Trent Park. That was kind of where we went, running in the hills, and it was just brutal. But I loved it because it was like, this is what it takes to be, let's say Premier League, a first division player playing for such an amazing football club. I'm in. You can work me, because that kind of was my strength. I was fit. My game was based on being an athlete and wasn't the most skillful, as I think 10's my record of keeping the ball up, keepy ups, and then we had a lot of skillful players: David Rocastle, Paul Davis, Michael Thomas. If we did keepy ups, I'd definitely be bottom of the pile. But I made up for it I was intelligent football, but George taught me where to be at the right time and how to play my position. As the back four was drilled every single day, and it was hard work, but it paid off. Come a Saturday, you just press the button going into autopilot. We knew exactly where to be. I knew I could close my eyes on the pitch, and you could say, right, the ball's there, close your eyes, tell me where all your players are. And I could say, right, Tony Adams is 15 yards behind me and probably 3 yards distance back and 15 yards in, and I turned around and there he was, and I knew where Boldy was, and I knew where Nigel should be. And if any of us were out of position, we kind of knew what to do next. So, and the whole team knew that. That was the beauty of what he taught us. But that came with hours and hours and hours of training on the training pitch, and boring. The training was pretty hard to get through. But on a Saturday we go and win. So we're going to go, you know what? I'll take that Monday to Friday, just because of the Saturday, and that's kind of how he educated us. And brainwashed is a big word, but to a certain extent we were a bit robotic, but the comfort and safety you get as a defender, having that to fall back on, is held me in brilliant stead throughout my career, especially when Arsene came later on. It was kind of like, he kind of looked at us and we went, don't speak, we don't really need to hear you, because we're going to, and he didn't really need to say anything to us. He just went, he said, I think the only thing that Arsene has ever said to me was, just go and play. Because he didn't need to say anything else, because he kind of had got that side of it from George.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to tap into some of your Arsene anecdotes further down the line. But just in terms of that pre-season, you obviously had a bit of a reputation for an attacking fullback. Yeah. Remember there was a Makita tournament at Wembley. You actually scored against Bayern Munich. Yeah. 3-0.
Yeah.
What can you remember that? Tapping.
Yeah, it was I don't know what I was doing up there. In fact, I watched that the other day. It was on something. Somebody put it on YouTube or on Twitter or something, and I was like, it said something about goals against Bayern Munich, and I was like, I remember scoring that. It was my first goal, and that was kind of what I did. I got forward, and George had let me go now and again, and I remember scoring that, thinking it was almost like. I'm sure the lads didn't think this, but it's almost like, I'm accepted now because I've got a goal, and he kind of knows what he's doing. I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. It was just run forward, that's what I played. That's how I played, because I used to be a winger, so ultimately ended up as a fullback. So you kind of, those instincts are still there, and the education that early in my Arsenal career defensively hadn't really set in yet. George was still working on us, and so. I think he probably said something to me after like don't be doing that too many times. We'll let you off at this one. But yeah,
I mean that team was full of goals. Obviously, the first game of the season was Wimbledon, Player Lane. I think it was a 5-1. I was there for that game.
Yeah.
Can you remember that game at all? Because that boded well for the rest of the season. Didn't
I remember going to Plough Lane and that kind of being an environment I was used to playing in. I came up through the ranks at Burnley, at Bury, at Chester. So I played at grounds like that all my career. So I think it was a shock to a few of the lads who perhaps had been a higher level, played at a higher level, because Plough Lane, as you know, wasn't the best place to go, but it kind of like home for me. I was like, this is fine, and we absolutely battered them. Yeah. And I remember thinking, God, this can't last, can it? We can't be like this all season. And obviously we had a brilliant season, but there was a few troughs along the way. But I remember that being a start. There's no better place to start away from home and winning like that, because it just gives you a huge amount of confidence. Because a lot of us were quite naive. It's like, wow, is this how it's going to be every week? George was like, let's calm down a bit. It's one game at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about troughs there. September was a bit of a trough in terms of. I remember there was a 3-2 home defeat by Villa in early September at Highbury, and there was a 2-1 defeat at Sheffield Wednesday I went to as well. Yeah. Can you remember that? Did that team seemed to have a lot of confidence. That didn't really knock you out of your stride.
No, I think sometimes when you've got young players, you can get away with defeats. Yeah. On the flip side of that, you might go, well, they get scared, when they see the enormity of what you're doing. Playing for Arsenal is a huge thing, but I think George just got the balance right. We had a few experienced players, like obviously Tony was still experienced, even though he was relatively young. But you got David OLeary, John Lukic. There was a few older heads at Paul Davis. There's a few older heads there who'd been around the block a few times, and he'd mixed the youngsters with that. So we were brash, and it doesn't matter if we get beat. So we were still. Obviously, towards the end of that season, when because we hadn't won anything, we didn't even think about winning it that early on. It was just playing for the badge, and being able to put a shirt on every week for me was. And funny enough, I carried that through the whole of my career. My goal every week was to make sure that I got that shirt again on my back the following Saturday. I had very short-term goals, so I didn't look ahead and go, we're going to win the league. I was like, can I get in the team next week? And it held me in good stead, because I knew I'd have to bust the gut to get to convince George to keep me in. And when I look back on it, there was a bit of me goes, I did enjoy it, but did I? I played 619 games. That's a lot of shirts on your back. But it was from a week-to-week basis. It was like, right, get another one. So that's 20 games I've played. That's 21 games I've played. And 600 seems, years away, and obviously it was. But even in my last year, I was going, can I get another 5? Lauren had taken over. Can I get another 5 starts? Can I ended up getting 12, I think, or 13 in the last season, 2002. So I was grabbing shit like a game. How many more can I get? Because I was never going to get to number 1, but I wanted to get up that appearance list. That was one of my goals, to get as high up as I could. And to get 4th is probably that, and the mural on the side of the the big Lee Dixon with the 32 of us round there. Those are my 2 biggest things that warm my heart. We put the medals on the table. Yeah, it's great. You hold them up and go, and the memories and that of '89 and all of those. But when every time I go to the Emirates, and I don't even see it because it's round the other side, but from the press bit, but I know it's there, and to be on that, and then to be 4th in the all-time list of appearances that'll do me. That's my biggest achievement.
Fair play. I mean, as you've said, that your love of the Arsenal really shines through. You touched on Geordie Armstrong there. The anniversary of his untimely passing is coming up. What are your memories of Geordie?
Geordie was brilliant with me, because I'd had a couple of periods where I was towards the end of my career, I was struggling with my knee, so I was in and out the side, and then I had an operation on my ankle, broke my ankle, so I missed a big chunk of. That's probably the longest injury I was out. I was out about 5-6 weeks, and so coming back into the team, I was playing with Geordie in the reserves, and he was just such a lovely man. He really cared about his team. He cared about the club, loved the club, loved his players, loved the game, loved the fact that he could influence young people, And I loved it. And I was all in. And sometimes when you get a senior player going into the reserves, sometimes he's a bit resentful because you think, I could be, once you get past the just doing it to get fit bit, there then becomes, I should be in the first team now. Why aren't I back there? And then you still have to keep your fitness. And in those days, you still had to play in the reserves if you weren't playing. I don't think they do. There's no. It's a different system now. But but as soon as I know I was playing in the reserves at the weekend or to keep my fitness, I was like, it's fine because it's Geordie. Because I loved that. I loved him as a football man. I'd run through walls for him. And he always took care of everybody, not just the senior players and the young players. As a group, it meant everything to him.
Yeah. We interviewed Jill Armstrong the other week, his daughter, and the sense of the man came across, and I think
absolutely. And the fact that everybody still talks about him and his memory's still out there, quite rightly so. He was a key member of the club and should never ever be forgotten.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said for what it's worth. Going back to the football, obviously there was a North London derby that September as well.
Yeah.
3-2.
Yeah.
That was your first experience of North London derby, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, and it was scary because I'd played in Chester. Wrexham's a big derby. Yeah. There's only like 5,000 people there, but it's intense. The crowd hate each other, and you can almost taste it in the ground before the game. So the North London derby, it's going to be tough and it's going to be fierce, but the lads in the dressing room before the game scared me because they were like, you don't understand this, you're a northerner, you don't get this, and we're telling you that this is everything to us. And it's I'm not in the dressing room now. I don't see the lads before a North London derby now, but it's not the same. I'm telling you now, it definitely isn't the same than it used to be, because the influx of the foreign players has to dilute a derby, whether you like it or not. Some of the guys that I played with, the Patricks and the Manu Petits and the Thierry Henrys and that, they got it, but it's still a bit diluted from us. And I got it from the North London boys, but that would still be a bit diluted from them. So there has to be because unless you are a North London boy, you don't quite understand. You get told, and I got told, and then I'm like, right, I get it. And so you have to pass that on and try and portray that to your teammates who have not experienced it before, how it is and how important it is. And I'm sure all the lads in all the derbies around the world are saying the same things, but it has to be a pass-on thing, and over time it kind of, it does lose a little bit in translation, but it's still in there for me right now, and I still, and I just want to. Who can I pass it on to? You want to give it to that, and they did to me. I was threatened in the dressing room before. You play well, or you're in trouble with us. Before they get at you, it's us. You've got to answer to me, Tony Adams, Dave Rocastle, Michael Thomas. Paul Davis, I was like, we're on the same side here. What are you doing? So it was, But I'll tell you what, talk about pumped up before you go out. I could have gone out on there on my own, and I took a lot of them on. I was that fired up for it. I said, you lads, you just stay here. I'll do this. So great feeling to have. You feel as if you're invincible, for want of a better word, because I wasn't. Damn it!
So used to that too early. But I was obviously in the way on that day. That was a cracking game.
Have you ever missed a game ever?
Oh well, yeah, a few over the years. But the atmosphere that day was something special, like you say. Yeah. What are your memories of actually being on the pitch? Because off it was pretty tasty as well.
Yeah, those games, it's very difficult to remember because there's so much going on. I had this conversation with someone the other day about football and enjoying football, and I try to get over to them what it's like, and they were going, oh, you must have loved playing in this and loved playing, and I was like, yeah, and then I went, but this is the reality of it, and any player who tells you any different is lying. You don't actually enjoy the 90 minutes. Unless there's moments of it. You're 3-0 up at home and the whole crowd are singing your name, and you've had a great game, and there's no chance of you losing, and you're just going through the motions. You enjoy those moments, but in general, from minute 1 to minute 90, when the game is on, you're not actually enjoying it. You're so concentrated on what you're doing. You're so in the moment. It's not an enjoyment. It's a concentration. It's like when you're working, you're doing a project, or you're really working hard on something, and then you finish it and you go, and you present it to someone, or you're doing a presentation at work or whatever it is, and you go, there you go. There's a satisfaction out of it. Then you start to go, that's the bit you enjoy. As soon as a whistle goes at the end, and the leading up to it is a kind of weird enjoyment, because you're kind of anticipating stuff and you're playing it through your mind. But the actual, when the whistle goes, I don't enjoy marking Ryan Giggs. I do when I get the ball off him, and then I give it to someone else and crowd go, yeah, well done, Dicko. But immediately I've done that, I know that at any second he could get the ball back. So why would I enjoy that? Why would I stand there going, oh, this is fun? It's not fun. It's horrible. But I love the process of it all and being a footballer. But I think if you break it down and try and explain it to people like that, I want people to understand that, because it's important that they understand what goes on for players. So when they go, oh yeah, I love playing, players don't love the bit. They'll love scoring a goal, the moments in the game, but the actual 90 minutes it's quite stressful.
Yeah.
Even if you're doing well, you have to be stressed to get the best out of yourself.
Yeah. Obviously, we won't mention '99 semi-final replay. That was awful. I can't
Didn't
even
enjoy
talk about
that
it now.
bit.
No, absolutely. Ryan Giggs running towards you. Obviously, going back to '89, the autumn, there was a couple of notable victories. Arsenal won 4-1 at Forest. I remember being up there.
Yeah.
The Mercantile Credit Trophy at Villa Park.
Don't really remember that.
No, yeah, just another bauble.
Another
but it
trophy.
Was, no, yeah, absolutely. But I remember a 2-1 victory against Liverpool in late September at Highbury as well.
Yeah.
That was a really good performance. Brian Marwood seemed to have a stormer that night, as I remember.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that one myself as well. Because what happens is, obviously we made the documentary, and so we crammed a load of action into trying to tell the story of that season. And because I've seen all those clips and I've seen that, you kind of remember those moments more than the rest, because we went through hours and hours of footage to try and get the right bits and to tell the story, and Amy was a massive part of that. And so that season's quite truncated, because you know how long ago it was. Obviously it's 30 years ago, and we're in a position now where you imagine how many games I've played in since that game. So when someone goes, so fans tend to have a more photographic memory of events than I do. So people go, remember that when you Sheffield Wednesday when you did that, and I'll go, we did the England game the other week, and Czech Republic, and Clive Tilsley said, you've played here, and I went, when? He said, you played Czech Republic away, and I said, I made my debut against them at home, and he went, I only got 22 caps, so you'd think you'd remember all of them. And he went, yeah, you came on a sub for David Rocastle. And I went, did I? I cannot remember it. So I've had to YouTube it. And then, sure enough, there I'm running around in the second half with number 12 on my back. Don't remember it. I literally do not remember it. So there's chunks of that season, even though it was the best season, memory-wise, there's big chunks in that. So when you mention that, oh, he did well, that was a good game, I'm just racking my brain going, yeah, I'm sure it was.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose it's like that attitude.
Remember the last one.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose the attitude, like you say, your next game is the most important, and you literally just move on and forget about it, really, unless you're analysing your performance, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, in the season you're in, I remember everything. I remember every kick and every tackle. But then over the years, you kind of, it's a lot of kicks and a lot of tackles and a lot of missed tackles, and But the big events stand out. The big misses, the big mistakes. Coventry own goal and stuff like
91,
that. You never get away from that, because it's always it's always around. There's always an anniversary coming. So thankfully, to be fair, there was more good times and bad times.
Absolutely. In terms of the book, you touched on the character there, David Rocastle, God rest his soul. The essence of the man really comes through in Amy's book.
Yeah.
Can I ask what your memories of Rocky?
Well, Rocky, where did you start? He was quite an intimidating dressing room to go into, because you had quite a few high profile, as I saw him when I was at Stoke, looking up at the First Division going, wow, Arsenal. Then all of a sudden I got walking in the dressing room on a Tuesday morning for my first training session. They're training at Highbury because it was winter, in the gym behind the JVC, and I walk in that dressing room, and David was one of the first people I saw. It was David OLeary, big handshake, saying hello, and Rocky was there and came over and made himself present to me and said, "Look, welcome aboard. How are you? Have you settled in?" So I remember him. Straight away I thought, "Oh, what a nice thing to do, and what a nice person he seemed." And so we kind of, and he looked after me when I got in the England squad. He was already in the England squad, and he put his arm around me. We used to kind of hang out together, and obviously played. He played in front of me, so we had a really close football relationship, which I would do anything for him on the pitch, and off it. But there was a definite bond there. I looked after him on the pitch. He looked after me. I've always had good relationships with my guy in front. I think it's imperative for a fullback to do that. And we always got on brilliantly well, and he was just a fantastic footballer, and a gem of a human being. You couldn't not. Everything about him was gentle, caring, sharing, but hard, ruthless, dynamic on the pitch. So he had everything. He literally had everything. He was a really lovely family man as well. So he had all the attributes that I looked at when I wanted to make a friend with somebody. So forget about the football. He was a friend that I'm proud that he's in my life. The fact that we're professionally linked and successful together was icing on the cake.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a real sense of that in Amy's book, obviously. In terms of the football, Arsenal kept winning, went through Christmas, beat Spurs, I think, early January. There was a game at Everton, mid-January, mid to late January, when I think Arsenal won 3-1. I remember being in the way end in the seats that day. And Amy talks about in the book, in terms of performance, Arsenal got clapped off. But obviously, in terms of sort of, the black players in the side, there was a bit of stick. Can you remember that day at all?
I remember, vaguely remember. I remember the performance, certainly. I remember playing really well. And it wouldn't have been the first time that there was any other stuff going on. It was kind of, it was empowering to have black players in and us all stick together and it be a team thing. It was very much team thing. I remember a few times it coming up. Certainly when we were away in South Africa and we had somebody accused Tony Adams of being a racist in a bar after a game, and we were like, we were all standing together. Dave Rocastle was there, Paul Davis was there. We were all literally arm in arm in this bar, and this bloke, and it was like, what are you doing? And and we're now going down. We're now going down the road of international games that happened a couple of weeks ago of the same old stuff coming on, and then now, doing a UEFA protocol, protocol that has been there for 10 years, and we're still going through the old stuff, and it's got to stop, and the only way to empower the players is to have a protocol and not just walk off like that, to go through that process, but it's got to be done on a regular basis. If it keeps happening, you keep going through the protocol and eventually the games get abandoned. But I remember, even back then there was always elements of racism going on. Certainly, John Barnes was involved in a lot of that. Certainly at Everton, we'd had a couple of problems before that, but it brought us together from a team point of view. There's no doubt about that. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, almost as an aside, I watched that Bulgaria game, and yourself was in the panel, obviously, with Righty and Keane. I thought you guys handled it perfectly. What did it feel like in the studio at the time? I got to ask.
It wasn't nice. There was an atmosphere at the ground before we got there. There was a lot of talk leading up to the game, and it was kind of almost like the talk, and then you kind of waiting to see whether it backed up with some trouble, and it was like, so it was almost like it was waiting to happen, but it wasn't a nice atmosphere. And obviously being there with Righty, we had difficult conversations. How do you broadcast this? There's all different things going on when that's going on outside, and the players are playing over there. It's kind of very distracting. But I thought we dealt with it, in a way that was sympathetic to the occasion, and also really focusing on what the important issues were, and that's not always easy to get right. So it was a difficult night, I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I say, for what as well, I think you guys absolutely handled it really well. On a far lighter note, I've got to ask, what's it like working with Roy Keane?
Keane, he's good to work with. He's good fun because you've got no clue what's coming out of his mouth next. So he could say he's going to say something in the advert. I'm going to say this in next. Oh right, great. So we know what you're going to say. And then Mark Pugac will ask him a question and he'll say the exact opposite.
Really?
So you kind of like, all right. So you kind of always, trying to work him out. But I've worked out now that you can't work him out. So it's interesting to say the least.
Again, I've got to ask, obviously there was that massive rivalry between Arsenal and Man United. It's nowhere near where it was now, the way it was before. What was it like the first time you worked with Roy Keane then? Were you sort of just on each other up from...
No, that was, it was a long time ago, and I think as soon as you come off the pitch, bygones are normally, it normally goes away. Sometimes there's a bit of lingering tension, but there's no one in football that I wouldn't get on with now, and I've booted a lot of people around, and likewise been booted a lot and had fights in tunnels and normally trying to defend Righty, I have to say. He's had more fights in tunnels than anyone, I think. So it's normally got to help Righty out again. So I said it's a team game, Righty, unless you're fighting in the tunnel, and then I'm going to leave you to it. But he, there's nobody. I didn't get on great with Teddy Sheringham when we were playing. I used to hate him on the pitch, and he hated me. And he was always a bit of a niggle, and he was take it in turns to try and hurt each other. Which, but if he was sitting here now, I wouldn't buy him a drink, but we'd get on all right.
Excellent, I love that. Obviously, going back to the season and the book, come sort of February time, there was a really tough game at Millwall. I've been watching Arsenal League 40 years, and that was one of the most intimidating atmospheres I've been to, certainly in this country. Can you remember that? Because that was when David O'Leary was mic'd up, as Amy writes about in the book as well.
Yeah, that was it was a bit of a weird one, that, because we knew something was going on, but we weren't too sure. There was a lot of secrecy about the game beforehand, and obviously during the game we didn't know, and Tony Adams screaming in his high-pitched voice. I've never heard that voice since. Don't know where it's gone now, but it's over the line. It's over the line, and I can't even impersonate him. He was just, I think, those moments in that he was funny, but immediately after the game when we found out he was mic'd up, we were like, oh God, what have I said? It was definitely going to that. I must have said something. They're going to be, my mum's going to be, going to be in trouble for swearing or something. But it was a weird one, and it was. And Millwall's, goes without saying, it's a difficult place to go. And I played there a few times in the lower leagues as well with Stoke. I remember Steve Bold get sent off. He got sent off for Stoke, and he didn't get sent off for Arsenal, did he? There, I can't remember, but he was one of the two. And I remember he had to walk because the tunnel was behind the goal, wasn't it? And he got sent off at the far end, and he had to walk all the way down the length of the pitch. And I think we were drawing, so instead of going off the pitch, he walked right down the middle of the pitch. And by the time he got down to the Millwall end, there was about 1,000 people around the thing, like swapping missiles with each other like that. Saying, everyone got 50p's? Yeah, they were just like that, waiting for him. And he was like, the coppers just went, I'm going up there. And he got absolutely pelted coming off the pitch. And it was a tough place to go without having the referee mic'd up. But I think they'd done the research. They kind of know which game it was going to be that Ellery wanted to be mic'd up for. And then afterwards, obviously, George found out that he'd mic'd up and then came in and said, I think a few of you might be in trouble after this. But the documentary was quite a good watch, actually.
Yeah, I remember watching it at the time, actually. Yeah. Apart from being Arsenal being at the end of it. Yeah,
exactly.
But obviously, in terms of that sort of February as well, Arsenal just kept ploughing through. Got to March, there was a bit of a wobble, but they were still sort of going there. But going back to the Millwall game, there's a brilliant bit in the book about Tony Adams is sitting with David O'Leary after the game at Millwall at the Old Den, and David O'Leary just goes, "We're going to win the league because we never come to a place like this and win unless you've got something about you." Was there a sense of that for you as well after that game? Not in the slightest.
No, you know, the juggernaut that was, and I knew all about Liverpool before I came to Arsenal because they were such a great side and you couldn't avoid them. You know, every year they kind of win the league or they'd win the European Cup, and it was just, I grew up with them being brilliant, and watched them from the lower leagues, and so the juggernaut that was them, you know, I certainly had a sense of them on our, you know, breathing down our necks way before they kind of started that run. You know, they had an incredible run at the end of the season where they were just winning game after game, and looking over our shoulder going, we can't afford to slip up here. So even, you know, David, I remember, I didn't hear the conversation, but I remember him talking about it after, saying, you know, that was the day when we thought we might win it. I never thought we were going to win it until Mickey put the ball in the net.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of like, I'd always been brought up and, you know, never looked too far ahead. But I think there was a moment where, a bit later than that, we started going, oh, do you know what? We've got half a chance here. And that's when we had the real big wobble right near the end of the season, when we looked like we'd thrown it away completely. So, you know, there's a lesson learnt there, certainly. You know, get too far ahead of yourself. Again, especially if you've got another team chasing you. But that team was special. You know, they were past masters at winning and turning the screw and really putting the heat on, and they could do it almost at will, and they just kind of went, right, we better start winning, and boy did they start winning. Yeah. So that was the scary bit, because they were coming up on the rails.
Absolutely. Just in terms, you can't overstate how good they were at the time.
No.
But if you're talking about their sort of city rivals, Everton, I think on the 8th of April, Arsenal played Everton at Highbury, and I think you got a goal that day. It's one of those games that was not many people remember really. But I think it was 2-0 when you got a goal.
Yeah.
And that was, yeah. Can you remember anything about that?
Well, I could, yeah, because I had, if it's the same game I'm thinking of, I had a broken toe, and I was having my big toe on my right foot. I broke, and I was having injections probably 2 or 3 games before that, or like a game before that, and it was agony. I was having to have an injection to freeze the joint and the whole toe so I could kick the ball, and it was my right foot as well, and as most of the people at Arsenal know, I didn't use my left very often. But I was like, I had to have these injections in, and it was early on in the game. I think I scored from a corner, it came out, and I hit it at the edge of the box, and I remember as the ball was coming to me going, this is going to hurt, because even though it was frozen, the thought of kicking a ball with a broken toe was like, even though it was coming, I was wincing, and I kind of hit it, well, I didn't catch it great, and there was a couple of guys on the line that should have cleared it, and both tried to clear it at the same time, and it went in. But yeah, so I do remember scoring, and I think it's that goal, because I didn't score 28 goals, so I should be able to remember. Quite a lot of them were penalties, so I should remember it really. Yeah. But yeah, the memory's going a bit, but I think it was that one. Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, on a really serious note, one game that a lot of people remember came the week after, 15th of April 1989. Arsenal playing Newcastle at that Highbury, and there was a really strange atmosphere there. Yeah. What's your recollection of that day?
Exactly what you said. You know, we kicked off as a game at Highbury. I was excited as I always was playing there. Probably the best stadium I've ever played at. Iconic football stadium. That's why everybody loved playing at Highbury, and I was lucky enough to play there every week or every other week. So it was a normal day for me. Go about my business and win the game. Not even thinking about the semi-final. Probably across my mind that probably want Liverpool to win to keep them occupied. So, you know, let them get to the final, and but then as the game went on, it kind of became we became aware something was happening during the game. I can't remember at what stage. I just remember it being a weird atmosphere, as you said, and then the realisation of something happening at another ground where somebody has died. We didn't know at the time how many or what the situation was, but it was just like, well, that's it. You know, the football just literally paled into insignificance, even if it was one person. And the fact, you know, in the end it was 96. It was kind of like, how did that happen? How can that? You know, it was just confusion, and all the stories were coming out about why, and it didn't really matter why. It was just a case of the people had died, and that's not right. And so there was, and I remember thinking, I say it in the documentary, that well, that's it, the season's over. How can you carry on playing football after that? Regardless, just stop it. Don't care. I didn't want to play anymore after that. It was like, well, that's it. We'll just have whatever it was, 2 months off, and then we start again next year. Just rip the record books up. And that's a reaction to it. It's not a sensible reaction. It was just a knee jerk. Everybody thought the same. And I think in the end it was the right thing to do, the way they did it. People might have different thoughts on that, I don't know, but I think all the players, and I think the Liverpool players as well, it was the right thing to carry on the season and finish it off in respect of those people that died, and so it was a right way to do it. The break was difficult because all you're thinking about is that, although you've got this pending game later on, the 2 week break, it was kind of like, right, that's kind of what do you do, what do you think about, the training was hard, but obviously we've still got football to play, and then starting again against Norwich, I think it was, wasn't it? Starting again was like almost a relief to go, right, okay, we can get back to being protected in football, because you are protected, and you kind of get the excuse, if that's what the right word is, to get on with it and get on with your job, because that's what we're paid for. And we had a brilliant reaction, and but then there was still that game to come at some point. We didn't quite know when it was going to be played, and obviously it panned out. It was way after the season had finished.
Yeah. I mean, in Amy's book, there's a really quite moving piece about the fact that obviously Arsenal were due to play him on that weekend on the 22nd, and Amy went up to Liverpool after collecting money through a school, met some Liverpool fans. It's a really, really moving piece in the book, and the book handles it so well. It's just how you've articulated it, basically. And you've sort of touched on the fact that purely in terms of football, you guys were still training every day, still working, because that's all you knew, basically. That's all you could do.
And taking our mind off it, or whatever the word is, but the word professional kicks in, because that is your job. You're paid to do that. You've got to put other things to the side, and we just got on with it. We had games coming up, and big games as well, and games that, when you look at it, would have won us the league without playing the Liverpool game. So it was almost like, right, we could do this, and then you kind of, the end of the, it's not just all on that last game, or because we thought at the time when Liverpool might have a dip, and they just ploughed on. It was like, out of respect for what had happened, they were going to go and win everything. And there is still a part of me now that I look back and go, would it have been the right thing if they'd have won that game, and Hillsborough would have been remembered for the season they won the double? But that's not what football's about, and I think the respect for the game kicked in, and quite rightly so. It was competitive that night, and absolutely the right thing to contest it in a sporting arena, with respect to the 96, with the flowers that we gave, with the setting that the night was going to be probably one of the biggest nights in the history of the game at Anfield. That theatre was perfect setting, but not to be just go there and go through the motions. It was, we had to go and be respectful for the game as well.
Absolutely, and we'll obviously touch a bit on
the
20th. We jumped ahead there, Just to go back to the Norwich game, that was on, I think it was May the 1st. Arsenal won 5-0. I think it was Bank Holiday weekend, and I was sort of saying to me and Glenn were talking about it before, everyone just seemed drunk that day, and obviously football had played its respects, and it was almost like, right, let's get back into football as a sign of respect. And it was just a brilliant performance that day, but against a really good Norwich side as well. What can you remember of that day? Alan Smith scored a good goal, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I remember the team talk, right back at it. George was saying, forget about that. We can pay our respects later on. We've done our bit. We need to get back and focus. They'll be doing the same. It'll be, and it was a beautiful day. I remember the sunshine. I remember a really party atmosphere, as you mentioned. None of the players were drunk, by the way. So the game was. I remember Alan Smith scoring that volley, and it was, it was kind of like we were total control, and it was almost like, this is it. We beat them, then we can see a pathway now, and that's kind of when you start going, oh, this could be it. This could be our year.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the week after, I remember going up to Middlesbrough, Ayrton Park. That was a fearsome place to go.
Yeah.
Late Martinez goal got
big result.
Got
That was
a huge result, big result, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I remember them throwing carrots at Tony Adams in the Holgate end.
Yeah.
Can you remember that game at all? I mean, he got loads of stick that season.
Yeah, I threw a couple at him as well.
You were the first one in throwing it.
I gave them to the fans. Throw these at Tony, will you? Yeah, I remember. Obviously, I remember it. It was, Tony was. He was almost made of steel. He had a. Also, we thought that was his, his armour, and you couldn't get to Tony because he was the Colossus, as George used to call him. And little did we know. And further down the line, I'm very close to Tony now, so been through a lot of, not been through it with him, but watched him go through his recovery and realising that he wasn't big tough Tony all of the time, and so moments like that, although he was put his chest out and take deep breaths and be resilient to that sort of stuff, hurt him a lot. I know that for a fact, and we didn't, because he was such a big character in the team. He couldn't be seen to have a weakness like that. If he'd have folded then I think we all would have gone. Yeah. But that's why he was, he had the armband, because he wouldn't let anything like that show on the outside, although he was hurting big time on the inside, and that would come out later on in his recovery and in his vulnerability as a human. Whoever that would have happened to in that team, because we were full of big characters, we all would have brushed it off and got on with it. It'd been hard. And we all went through times where you dip in form, and the abuse that you get from the sidelines is, you have to find a layer over the top of it, otherwise it'll crucify you. And many a better player than me has gone to big clubs and not been able to handle that. And it's part of being I say to people about what makes a good player, and vision, ability on the ball, how you see a game, how you smell danger as a defender. There's all sorts of things go into making a player, and one of those things, especially at a big club, one of those things is being able to handle the times when you're having a bad time, and it's not easy. Even the times when you're playing quite well and the team's not playing well, and you're still getting stick, and you're like, hang on a minute, I'm doing my bit. We're having, but you don't get a chance to look over your shoulder and have a word with the fans. You're in it. Yeah. It's like, a little bit like now, when the players have been under a bit of stick now, and the manager and everyone's questioning what's going on. Should this happen? Everyone's got an opinion, but we're not in it. We're not in the dressing room. We're not on the training pitch. We don't see what Unai's looking at. We don't understand it completely. We just have our outside view on what's going on. Yeah. And as players, they've got you have to have a real outer shell that doesn't let things in like that. Otherwise, you don't play at that level. It's as simple as that. So all the great players we've seen go, why didn't he make it there? It's because of that, because they can't cope with that side. It's not a weakness. It's not me having a go at players who can't do that. It's just my character is like this. Some other body's character might not be quite as resilient, but they're a miles better player than I am. It's a big mix of soup that goes into making a player last long, the longevity of their careers at big clubs. It's a massive difference. Having played in the smaller clubs and then played in one of the biggest clubs in the world, I can tell you it's a huge difference. The expectation of a big club mentality, it's heavy. It's a heavy load to take on your shoulders, and some people can't deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, that's really interesting you say that, because obviously Arsenal showed immense character on the 26th of May 1989 to actually win the title. But if we rewind 2 weeks, the Derby County home game,
we didn't.
No, yeah, that was a. I woke up that morning thinking we were going to win the league. If Arsenal had won and Liverpool had lost, we'd have won the league that day. Yeah. Obviously, certain Dean Saunders had a good game. What can you remember of that game?
I remember Dean ripping Tony a new one most of that game, twisted and turned him for the penalty. He had a really good game, and I remember we had the similar, maybe naive look on that game I remember there was somebody selling badges outside with champions on it, like those enamel badges.
Right, yeah.
He must have got them done. I don't know who he was. Because we came down Avenel Road, there was a load of people selling scarves, and the coach slowed down, and this guy had a card with these badges on, 89 champions, and I was like, whoa, what's he doing? And then he was kind of, well, probably he'll make a killing at the end of the game because he'll sell them all. Well, I didn't see him after the game.
No.
I think he'd gone home at half time. But we were maybe a little bit, it's okay, it's Derby at home. We're going to beat them, it's fine. And then Liverpool might win, but we've got to do our job. And we were all focused, we weren't. But some days you get days off where you just don't quite click, and the opposition played brilliantly well. And Dean Saunders was a proper handful that day. Yeah. He definitely wanted Liverpool to win, I know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he had a great game, to be fair, didn't he?
Yeah.
Obviously, fast forward to the Tuesday, the 2-2 draw against Wimbledon. I mean, what I remember that night was the real feeling of disappointment after the game. I was stood in the clock end. But everyone was in it together. No, I don't think anyone left after the game. They were applauding the team. Imagine that these days with Twitter and stuff. I'm not sure it'd be the same.
No, it wouldn't be.
But what's your sort of remember?
The same, it was, George had reset us all. He's like, fine, it's okay, made a mistake. We'd lost the game. 2 games at home against Wimbledon and Derby to win the league. And we messed one up. And then we're just about to mess the other one up. Nigel gets that. What's he doing?
With his wrong foot as well.
His right foot. What's he doing? And he gets the goal of all goals, and then they equalise with that little bloody Paul McGee, who was playing against me at the time on that left-hand side. But I was kind of like, the ball got pulled back to him, and I got caught with somebody near the 6-yard box, and he gets a free scubby shot into the corner, and I was like, that can't happen. It's 2-2. What's going on? And then, but I do remember at the end of the game, everyone going. It was almost. I don't know whether it was resigning the fact that we'd had a great season and we're just going to fall short, the fans, or it was. I don't know what it was. It was a weird. Certainly the players. I remember thinking that we're done. We can't beat Liverpool, even though they'd still got to play West Ham. So we didn't know how it was going to work out, goal difference or what. But it was kind of like, they might slip up against West Ham. We've still got a chance, And I remember being in a restaurant the night they played West Ham, and because I didn't want to watch it, didn't want to hear it, and I was in Hertfordshire restaurant with my missus, and there was a Scouser serving the table. I mean, how's your look? He comes up and he goes, "All right, lad," and I was like, "You're kidding me, aren't you?" And he's serving the bread, and by the time he came, "Can I have some butter, please?" By the time he brought the butter out, they were 2-0 up or something. He was like, he kept going like that, 2-0 lad. I was like, "This is the worst night of my life." And obviously it ended up 5, and it was like, and he was just going, "No, nothing down for you now, lad. You've got," and he'd already worked it all out. He said, "You got to go and beat us 2-0 now." And I was like, "Right then, better get me a large brandy then."
So you didn't give a tip that night then?
No, he never got a tip. I tried to get him sacked actually. The owner said he's one of the best ones he got, so I think he's still got his job there now.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it was a terrible night for us, and set up what was to be the task ahead, which in all honesty it was kind of like, you've always got a chance, but the way the season had gone, had it and then threw it away, and the fact that Liverpool were on this win every game, they're never going to lose, and they don't need to even win the game, it's bizarre that they could actually lose the game and still win the league. We were like, got no chance.
Yeah. I mean, there's a brilliant bit in Amy's book. I mean, it's a brilliant book, full stop. But there's a brilliant bit when she basically says that sort of introduces the Bob Wilson anecdote. And I've not heard that before. Basically, Bob sort of turns up and says, "Well, we're going to win. We're going to win at Anfield 2-0. It's going to be done." And then sort of Alan Smith goes, "Are you sure, Bob?" Can you remember that at all?
I think Bob had been drinking. I'm not sure what was going on with Bob at that time. He was going through some emotional crisis. But I suppose if it was the other way around, if it would be me now, going into, I think that's kind of like, I mean, he genuinely believed that. George did. So, maybe all the staff had been, had a chat and said, "Look, we can definitely do this." And the players, I'm not saying now that there's not a chance of us winning, but in the realistic, brain thought, no, it's not going to happen. the heart says yes, because you're kind of like, we can do. Of course, we can beat anybody. We've beaten this season already. It's fine. We're in a position where we can, nothing to lose. Just go there but I just kept thinking the one thing that was weighing me down was Anfield. It was like, God, nobody gets anything at Anfield. It's a horrible place to go. I've spent, weeks trying to get the ball off Alan Hansen at the back. They just pass it around and they waste time, and they're just brilliant up front. And it's just, how are we going to beat them? It's just a horrible place to go. As iconic as it is, you never really get anything there. I've never seen any teams get anything there. I played there in the reserves for Chester once, and we got battered about 8-0. It was just like horrible. So I didn't have great memories of it. And I used to stand, I used to sit on the cop and probably been on the cop 4 or 5 times with my mate who was a massive Liverpool fan. I was a City fan growing up, and his dad used to take us to Anfield now and again when City were playing Liverpool. And we used to go on the cop behind, with my City scarf on, with all them lot. They used to stick me on one of the barriers, and then they also take the mickey out of me because I was the only one with a blue and white. But I was a kid, and they didn't, there was no aggression to it. It was just laughable that I was in there. I think we scored 1 goal in the whole time I was going because City weren't very good then. And I was jumping up and down on my own in the cop, and they were all going, right, Gil, what's he, throw him out? It's like, so I love the cop. I love that. I think that's probably the most iconic part of a stadium in world football. I don't think there's anywhere like it. So, but we're never going to go there and score 2 goals, are we?
No. 73 for 74, I think was the last time Arsenal won there, and that was 2-0. And they've got nothing since, basically. So you're obviously going up on the day of the game. Paul Johnson, the travel club sort of manager at the time, obviously, Amy talks about it in the book as well. George says, right, we're going up on the day of the game, and he's like, what do you mean? Like, there's got to be a plan B sort of thing. Yeah. What was your sort of memory of that waking up on May the 26th, 1989?
I wasn't nervous. I think I was beyond nervous because it was kind of like the impossible dream. So it was just like a normal going up day, really, apart from the fact we couldn't get on the coach because there was a million directors on there. It was like, what the hell's going on here? The lads had to get split up. There was people sitting in our seats. It was like ridiculous. And they want to come up and say, well, where have they been all season? Get them another bus or something. It was kind of like packed. And that messed the prep up. I think we cleared a load of them out to the front of the bus, and they were sitting on each other's knees or whatever, because we wanted to go back and play our cards and do our same prep and all that lot. So George sorted that out in the end that we would get our own seats, because that's, you don't sit in anyone else's seat on the coach. That's rule number 1. You've got your own seat. I'm sitting there, and it takes years to build up that hierarchy where you're going to sit and where you are on the coach.
Who did you sit next to?
So we used to play cards back left, so there'd be like me, Steve Bold, Tony Adams, John Lukic.
Okay, so literally the defence.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, Nigel didn't play that much. He used to sit opposite, but those were the 4 of us who played cards, and and then the next lot, the midfielders, would be they're weird lot, the midfielders, aren't they? Get them in the middle of the coach, and then the odd forwards splattered around them. But Smudge used to sit near us, and because it was obviously nearly all English, apart from David OLeary, it was pretty much an English team. So over the years that changed. It used to go in countries, so the English used to go at the back, the French in the middle, the Dutch would just sort of wander in between the two because they couldn't make their mind up. And then Dennis decided he was English, so he'd come back with us, and we pushed Mark Overmars to the front with the French because we'd get him over there. So but there is definitely a where do you sit thing, and nobody was sitting in your seat, otherwise all hell would be to pay. So when you get there and there's a director sitting there, you're like, well, can you play cards? Off you go. So we managed to pull rank.
I remember the sort of roads that day. The M6 was just a
I don't remember that, to be honest with you. I think we went early enough. We were up in the morning. We didn't train that day. I don't remember. So I think we were up there pretty early. So I think it was all right. But I don't remember any traffic, to be honest with you. Obviously Amy does and talks about it in the book. And that's the brilliant thing about the book is you get the different sides of the people who got there, the people who didn't. So she's done it brilliantly well. It's it's not like a normal storytelling book of an event. I think the way that she set it out with the different categories and things that happened, and then got the different people to speak about the individual events is brilliant.
Absolutely. I mean, it's an oral history, and that really sort of lends a lot of layers to it with the sort of climax on that night. You're absolutely right. It's a fantastic book, and every Arsenal fan should read it. Basically.
Yeah.
But obviously, in terms of, I mean, you touched on it earlier. Arsenal did everything right in terms of going back to Hillsborough, the Hillsborough disaster on that night, because you all came out with flowers. You were always really respectful.
Yeah.
They just did. It was a classy club to do that, wasn't it? And Arsenal's always been that, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're still to this day trying to find out whose idea it was. Well, I think it was Ken Fryer's, it was at board level. And I think it was Ken Fryer sort of kind of said, maybe this would be a good, really lovely gesture. And we, once the idea came, the flowers were there, and I thought absolutely spot on. And I wanted to give mine to the Kop because I stood on it. Yeah. I had a real affection to that part of the ground, so I sprinted off and gave it to a lady in the front row, and it was really emotional handing them over. But it had to be done, and the handover was. That's it now, the game starts here. Yeah. So, and she understood that. She didn't say anything, but she didn't have to. It was kind of like, her eyes said everything. It was like, thank you, let's go and play football. So it was a real energy boost for me then, because you're standing there with a bunch of flowers for 96 people that had died, just about to go and play football and get into basically war with another 11 guys who, it's really difficult, really emotionally, it was quite a head spin that night, because it was kind of like, how do we deal with this? And your kind of professional side takes over, but it wasn't until we handed those flowers over. So I'm thinking, if we didn't have those flowers, how would it have panned out? Because it would have been, I think I would have still took some of the feeling of Hillsborough into the game, but the handing of the flowers over was almost like, that's it, okay, we've drawn a line, we've paid our respects, now we've got to go and win a league. Yeah. So I think that was a really great idea for lots of different reasons, but it certainly worked for me. I can't speak about the other lads. But
literal as well as symbolic, absolutely. That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
Obviously, in terms of the game, the first half, George's famous going at 0-0, it's fine, lads. What did you remember about that?
Exactly that. It was like, I remember, in the documentary we made, I remember Merce saying, terrible, we don't have a kick. It's been a terrible first half, but I didn't think that. I thought different for him, because we had to score 2 goals minimum, and he was part of the scoring the goals bit. Yeah. So to him, I suppose he'd failed. But all we were concerned about, the back 4 and back 5 as it was, and the goalkeeper was, we have to keep a clean sheet, because we can't allow them to have to score 3. Yeah. That's unfair. We've got to do our bit. Yeah. So at half time at 0-0, we're high-fiving. We're having a great game. Barnsley's never had a kick. Houghton's never had a kick. Plan A, George had sorted that out. 2-3 centre halves had not really been troubled at all. Lukey had got a couple of long-range shots. Nothing to talk about. We're buzzing at the back. And I remember Merce playing terrible. We haven't created anything, which we didn't. Yeah. Baldy's header that got cleared off the line was about the only thing that we kind of had going for us.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a mix at half time. It was like, well done. Well, why? Well, it's 0-0. We've got a chance. George was like, it's all right. We'll get a goal early in the second half, and they'll have to change a bit because they'll be a bit worried, and then we'll just change the way we play, and we'll push on a bit towards the end. And and he did say that he thought we'd win 3-0, but I think he definitely lost his marbles when that happened.
Imagine. Obviously, with the goal, with the sort of furore around the first goal as well. It's been done to death in terms of what happened, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But what was your feeling when the referee gave it? Because it almost seems like George's prophecy was coming true.
Yeah, there was a lot of going on. I just got back to my. I never even crossed my mind he would disallow it. But when I watch the DVD now, I go, God, he might disallow it, because I didn't realise that all that was going on, because it was over left wing, near the touchline. I was back in my position, going, right, we've got one, we've got to get another one. How great's that? What's going on over there? Well, I didn't even know what they were appealing for. I couldn't work it out. Offside was the only thing that crossed my mind. I didn't realise that you know, from where I was standing, I can never see the ball going in the net from where I am anyway. It was like, I'm always miles away. So when it was, well, he obviously headed it, it's gone in.
Yeah.
But then the angle of the ball when you see it, and he's blatantly headed it. I mean, I can't, you know, even the die-hard Liverpool fans looking at that go, of course he touched it, you can see it move.
Yeah.
But I guess they were the past masters at that, by the way,
Yeah.
like getting into the referees and turning the tide their way. So the press, you know, that's why we, you know, sent Paddy into David OLeary to sort it out, because he was our experienced head. You know, that'd have been no good talking and arguing the case. I didn't really know what they were arguing about. I was just like back at my spot going, right. And then obviously it was like, whoa, you get a double. It's a bit like, it's turned full circles. It's like VAR is now. It's like VAR. You celebrate the goal and you all quieten down, and then you celebrate the VAR. So, which was a little bit like that, because we celebrated, and then it was, oh, hang on a minute. So we all sat around waiting for and then you get another boost, and then it was kind of like almost, we really can't concede a goal now because we actually got a chance. Yeah. Up until that first goal goes in, you're kind of going, you still got to get two. So that when that goes in, you go, oh, hang on a minute. I remember turning around to John Lukic and going, come on. And he was like that. He was just like hyper, like concentrate. I was taking it a bit too far now. Just calm down a bit. You're a little bit like he was like, come on, Dick. I was like, oh. So it was kind of like, you know, he was. We've got a chance now, even though there was still a long time to go.
Yeah.
And then obviously Mickey has his first chance, which was. I thought that was it. I thought that. God, you're not going to get another chance at Anfield.
I was going to say, I mean, what went through your mind? You were just like, oh God, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
But then I think George, you know, you go through days in the training pitch, in the pissing down rain, in the wind, in the mud, and the training ground was always muddy, and it was hard work, and George would be whacking you with a stick, going, do this, do that, and you're like, really? But there was it's not only educating you in how to defend and get what he needs to do. What he's also doing, which I didn't realise at the time, he's kind of instilling putting an attitude in your mind that you kind of don't know it's going in there, that you never ever give up. He was all about that, never give up, and he's going on about it all the time. You're like, yeah, whatever. No, I never give up. I'm always trying to do. And you say it, but it's at moments like that when you kind of go, it almost starts to ooze out of you. You go, no, all of that training, all of that moaning, all of that, you know, telling you off, discipline, being a father figure, being ruthless with you in training, and all of that lot, all comes down to, it comes out in you in moments like that when you go, do you know what? This keep going, we'll get another chance. So when Mickey missed it, initially you go, oh, that's it, we won't get it. And then all of a sudden you go, no, it's all right, we'll get another one. You get another one, and that all the great teams can do that. And he put it in us really early doors, because our first full season together. Yeah. So he put that into us really early, and that was because of the intensity of the training takes over. It's like any walk of life, but especially in really high pressurised jobs, or like being a soldier, being a surgeon, all the training that you do, and you think, well, God, you know, all the training the soldiers do, the repetitive, so it's in moments of high stress when they go to war or when they're in a conflict that it becomes second nature, and you just go into this. George did that with us. It was kind of like, right, we know we're just going into this repetitive attitude of just do the same things. We know what we're doing will be successful because we've got it before, and just keep doing it. And that's all down to him. Individual player character, but then he picks the players. So it's like if the manager's not getting the best out of his team at any one moment, then there's a breakdown in communication. A little bit like now is like, is he getting his ideas across? And if he is, and they're doing it, then it's the manager.
Yeah. If
he's getting his ideas across, or he's not getting his ideas across, then the players are not right. And if he's bought the players, it's still the manager. Do you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It has to come from the manager, the style of play, the players that are in there, and if that breaks down, ultimately, that's why it always stops with a manager, because he's the one setting the tactics. If the players are not doing it, get them out, get some new ones in. change the tactics.
Yeah.
Do something that makes it win. And if that doesn't work, then there has to be a change. That's the way football is, and that's always been that way. The difference is now is that the time span for that to be successful is like that now, as opposed to being like that, because you only get 3 or 4 results, then that's it, you're out. Well, the pressure's on, you're out. Social media, all the pressure of winning, and so who would be a manager now? It's just horrific. But George had time, and the time was taken in the weeks and months and years on the training pitch in order to get performances like that at Anfield.
Yeah. So you're basically saying that Anfield '89 was won on the training grounds of London.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. Yeah. That's really, really interesting what you're saying about that, mate. Obviously, the build-up to the second goal, the one of the most famous goals in Arsenal's history. What can you remember that then?
And I've relived this a million times.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
And I've, it's on the documentary. And every time I think about it, I always think of something else. Something else comes into my mind that's not even in the doc and probably isn't in the book. They're just little flashbacks of stuff that's gone on. The bobble that was just ahead of the ball that I only remembered a while ago, and I'm not even sure it was even in the documentary, because we did that one take on camera talking about it, and I'm reliving it, and then I've relived it a million times since. Every time I watch it, and I remember there was a tiny bit of turf just as the ball was rolling towards. There was a tiny bit of turf that was somebody, there was a heel mark and it was sticking up, and I remember looking up at Smudge. Well, I remember firstly not wanting it off John. That's well documented, because I was like, why is he kicking? Don't throw it to me. Yeah. And he threw it to me, so I remember as it's coming to me, just let it run across me, take one touch, and then by that time you'll have had a look up, and it's all this is going through your head in split seconds. It's like first touch, because I knew there wasn't anybody there, because they just had an attack on the right, and there was nobody on my side, so I knew I was kind of on to throw it out to, and I knew if he did throw it out to me, I'd kind of have a bit of space, because there was nobody on that side of the pitch. So when he threw it, I thought, just let it come across me, take one touch, and then smash it as far as you can towards the goal, and then just get it out, get it near their goal, because the referee had told me just before that there was no time left. And so I'd go like that, look up, and I'm like, what's Smudge doing? Smudge starts coming into his normal little slot he comes into, not where I was going to hit it. And there was no one else to hit it to, so I was like, well, that's it, I'll have to hit it. I can't just hit it up there anyway. There's no knock it back to Grobler and the game will be over. So he's in the little channel, so I've gone. So then I look down at the ball to kick it, and as I look down, I see this bit of turf, and the ball's rolling to it. So if you watch it back, you'll see me kind of like look down and then kind of like rush at the ball, because I'm seeing it. I'm thinking it's just going to timing. It's just going to go bump, and I'm just going to go straight into the stand. And so I kind of rush it a little bit, and it's the ball of my life, and as far as accuracy and pace and what he needed, because if I hit it and bounce it in front of him, he's then got one of these to deal with. So I had to hit him I was trying to get it sort of around midriff, because I thought get it up there. I don't want to hit it too high, because he's got to flick it on. I didn't see Mickey making a run anyway. I just thought, I've got to hit. I can't hit his head and I can't hit his feet, because it might bounce. So I've got to hit somewhere in the middle. So I've it's like playing golf. You kind of pick a 7-iron and go, that'll be about right. Try and hit this 7-iron, little low one into it. This is in like that.
Yeah.
So I'm with the bobble just about to happen. So I'm kind of right. Didn't want it from John. I've got to hit Smudgy's chest, bobble. So I've hit it a bit hard actually, because I've rushed it a bit, and as I've hit it, I've gone, ooh, I've hit that quite hard, and it's sailing toward, and I see it dipping, so I know I've got that bit right. I'm just going to hit him around here, which he can deal with anything, because he's Smudge, and he can deal with any touch. He's got the best touch ever. So I think I've done my bit. I can't get up there and help. I'm too far away. So it was almost relief. There you go. Right. Go on then, off you go. I'm thinking, what's he going to do on his own? And then out of the corner of my eye, I seen him take it, and out of the corner of my eye, I see Mickey shirt, number 4, sort of, and I was thinking, oh, at least he's got some support, and that was it. Yeah. And then the rest of it is just somebody's gone like that and rewound it and gone slow motion, and the ball's gone to him, and it's kind of like he's slowly running away, and he's flicked it, and he's, you know, and then there's the ricochet, and then it's like 20 minutes later,
right?
I see the crowd go up, because I'm just going. I can't see how far he is away from the goal. I can't see who. I see people, not Houghton in particular, but I see people running towards him, and him all converted, because his shirt was like there, and then there was all these red shirts going like this, and he was kind of disappearing behind the shirt. So I Grobbelaar, vaguely remember him, and I was like, well, this is it, you know. And then I don't get a chance to. I don't see it going in the net. I just see all our fans go up, so I know it's gone in. Yeah. And then I'm immediately start crying on the pitch.
Yeah.
Like, emotionally just got me. I was like, ah! And then it was just, but when I watch it back, the weird thing is, and I don't know if you notice this as fans of watching it, and I only noticed it by my 15th watch of the documentary. It only just came to me how quick we all run back to the halfway line.
Yeah.
Mickey sprints by, he's going, come on, get back. Like, what were you doing? Everyone runs back. I mean, imagine that now. Yeah. You'd be tying your laces, you'd be they all run back, sprint. And the first time I noticed it, I went, what the hell were we doing? That's so naive. Let's get back and let them kick off. Because in essence, if it was today, they would never have got that. You know, they never would have gone down and got Mickey rolling it back to, because the time would have gone, because we'd have took 2 minutes to get back. A ref would have added a bit on, but I couldn't believe how quick Mickey ran back. I mean, he was pumped up, but he was getting people off him. No, we've got to get back to the halfway line. No, we've scored. We just won the league. Calm yourself down.
Did you get a chance to sort of look at his celebration as well? Because it was quite strange.
He tried to do a roly-poly and got it a bit wrong, and then Hazy was in there stopping him, and it was dreadful, wasn't it? It wasn't a Charlie George in the cup final by any means, was it?
Absolutely.
No, but it's iconic, you know, to see him upside down with his boots in the air. Kind of, it's just amazing.
And then obviously, you know, the final whistle goes, one of the most momentous matches in Arsenal's history, in the history of English football. What I know you said you sort of burst into tears when the goal went in, but what happened?
Yeah, I composed myself, and you know, and then we had the little moment with Mickey taking it, you know, getting the ball on the edge of the box and rolling it back to John, and I was just going, hoof it, you know, everyone was shouting at him, he just like rolled it back, and then John kicks it out, and Alan Smith does his little skip, and the ball goes out of play, and at that moment, it's really hard to describe. It'd be similar to what you're feeling in the stand, and you know, there's a complete emotional overload of nothing ever will get any better than this. This is the moment, and people talk about, and I have to say, and I've said this before, and it's a bit controversial, especially with my kids, but it's, you know, having your first child, and then even your second, whenever a child is born, and forgive me if you haven't got kids, but whenever that moment happens, nothing else exists. It's like that's the best, most amazing thing ever, will never be beaten. Anfield, when Mickey scores, that was the best thing that's ever happened to me, equally with my kids, because you can't separate. It's like, well, that's football. But the actual emotion of what happens in that split second is all encompassing. It completely takes over, and it'd be the same for the fans. That moment there's a moment when it just goes, doesn't get better than this. My life's over in that respect. I can't ever get better than that. That was the moment. And
there was a realisation in that moment that you were actually thinking that as well.
Yeah, I just went. It's almost like, well, you don't have these thought processes because it's too logical. It's almost like, might as well just retire now and just pack it in, because it's not going to get any better than that. And then when you have your first kid, you go, well, I'm not going to have any more kids because it can't get any better than that. And then you have your second kid and you go, oh, that was equally as good as that one. You know, so there is moments in your life, and George absolutely sums it up in the doc when he says, when we interviewed him, and he goes, isn't it great to have moments in your life like that, you know, to be able to look back on those moments in your life and you know it's kind of never going to get any better than that. It was and still is, you know, the most amazing thing. And it's brilliant that we made the doc. It's brilliant that you know, Fever Pitch is about that season, and that Amy's book is documented in 3 totally different ways. You know, we've got and his book as well. So you've got Fever Pitch, the book. The film was totally different than the book.
Yeah.
The same but different. Amy's book is like no other book I've seen written like that.
Yeah.
And I think we did a brilliant job of 89, the doc.
Yeah.
I think it encapsulates everything that I was feeling that season.
Yeah.
And that's all we set out to do, was to go with the players. Let's just put it down on in a way that you go, I want to watch that again, because I watch it all the time. You know, I get on a plane, I'll just put it. It's on my iPad. I watch it. I've read that 2 or 3 times. Different chapters of that. I just keep going back and reliving it, because it never gets boring.
Yeah, yeah. And there's so many things you can pick and choose from it as well, and like you say, it never gets boring. You're absolutely right. It's an amazing book. Talking about the doc as well. You know, I was obviously lucky enough to be at the premiere '89, and there was a real sense of a bond between that side.
Yeah.
Even now, almost sort of love, certainly respect, and friendship and camaraderie.
Yeah.
You obviously feel that every time you meet other guys.
Yeah, and that was a big part of the beauty of making it. Was we got all back together again the first time, really.
Yeah.
That we've all been, you know, it took a while, took a lot of phone calls, took a lot of organising. And Mickey was, you know, getting Mickey to do his bit for the doc took us a while to get the time and in the end he said to me, you know, at the premiere, he goes, thanks for making it happen, because, and he says it in lots of interviews, he says it in the doc as well, he said it's family, this is like it's almost like another family. And it's moments like that bring teams together, and all the others, you know, Liverpool will have stories about that. All the teams that have been successful will say these moments that bring you together, that you never, you know, the stuff you go through together as players, you never do that with your mates. You know, they are your mates, but you never go through your true, like your lads you grew up with at school, or you never go through moments like that and then achieve something at the end. So you're living, eating, sleeping, training, heartache, bit of glory, bit of this, bit of that, and it all goes into the end, and then all of a sudden you win the league at the end of it all. It's like it is a quite an unusual thing to go through.
Yeah, absolutely. Isn't it, Amy? I think Amy said once, like, if that was fiction, you just wouldn't believe it, would you? So it's so sort of unbelievable, really.
Yeah.
But, I mean, what I found really interesting was the fact that obviously you had a lot of success in your career. 89 was obviously the pinnacle. You went through a lot of success with Wenger as well, but 89 was the pinnacle of your career, you would say.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I knew at the time it wouldn't get any better. I can't see how. I mean, 98 double winning side was the best side I played in.
I love that side.
And I think, you know, I'm biased, but I think that side would beat any other side that since I was at Arsenal till the present day. If you put all the teams, lined them all up, I would pick that team to play in. And obviously I didn't play in the Invincibles, but I still think if we played the Invincibles 10 times and we'd beat them more than they'd beat us.
Really?
I think it was that good. And the Invincibles would probably say differently, but that's what football and debate is all about. But that 98 side
had everything, didn't it?
Just had everything, and so that season was, you know, and I was, you know, I played the whole season, so it was a brilliant time under Wenger, and it was incredible what we achieved football-wise that year, and the pinnacles of winning the FA Cup and obviously winning the league the way we did as well, you know, chasing Man United down and all of that, and Tony's goal and all of the stuff. It was incredible, but it still goes down to 89, because 89 was such a one-off occasion that'll never happen again. You'll never get the two teams going head to head, one needing to win ever again.
Yeah.
I can't see that happening in the circumstances it was. It won't happen like that again.
Yeah.
And the Aguero moment was fantastic, and it was, you know, great. I've had a million arguments with City fans, and I'm a City fan as a kid.
Yeah.
It's not even in the same ballpark. Aguero and you kidding me? Please explain your argument. And everyone says the same thing. Well, it was this, it was that, and We were playing Liverpool. We had to don't go away. That's how that's how it kind of pans out. I can't even bother arguing with them anymore. A lot of them are my friends.
Absolutely. I know. I absolutely love this conversation. Just a couple more questions. I know you're a really busy bloke, but we really appreciate your time. Obviously, in the week of Arsene Wenger's 70th birthday, I've got to ask, what's your sort of abiding memory of Arsene?
Abiding memory of him. What, one word or just?
Just an anecdote, a story, anything that gives you the essence of the man.
I think for me, he allowed me to become a player I didn't realise I was. He gave me the freedom, and really, my 6 years under him were the most enjoyable out of all my career. I say the last year and a half, I was starting to Lauren was starting to take over. So those from when he came, so 98 to 2000, 2002 when I retired. Those 5 years. It was just it coincided with me having the ability, the know-how from George, and it coincided with me being really fit when he came. I was 32, but I was massively fit. But I was also got all the experience. So my brain, my legs were still there. My brain was going like that. Easy. The game was easy. I just used to turn. I knew exactly what I was doing. I had a brilliant team in '98. I'd look up and I'd got Patrick inside. Second ball was Petit. I got Ray Parlour outside me. I'd look up and got Dennis making a run, Nicholas Anelka flying in. So it's like it was just right. He was still knocking. It was just easy. I couldn't fail. It was like if you gave the ball away in that team, you were stupid. Yeah. And then when we didn't have the ball, it was like Patrick, Petit, you two just do all that work there, and we'll just sit here like that, and then they won't get through us. And we've got the best goalie in Europe, so we're not really going to concede. So it was easy. I used to turn out literally. I used to turn up on a Saturday and I go, almost, who are we playing? It was like, oh, we've got Everton tonight. Yeah. Oh, who's that? Oh, maybe, I don't know, Peter Beagrie or whoever's playing. Peter, oh, God, it'll take me 3 minutes to sort him out. So once you sorted your winger out, and you knew once you sorted that out, and you go, right, I've sorted him out, and you could do that. You could, I was in a position, I was so experienced. So if he was fast, I knew what to do. I'd go, right, Tone, or Martin, whoever was there, I'd say, Tone, we got a winger over, we've got a speed merchant, I'm going to, you know where I'm going to be. So when we played against a fast winger, I would be in a certain position, do a certain thing to him. If he was a tricky one who couldn't quite run, I would go tight on him. Tony would go, well, Dicko's going to be tight, so I need to be a bit further over. So there was set thing. Whoever you're playing against, you're like, well, what's this? So it's almost like a chess game. You go, oh, we're playing them, right? We're all in these positions, done. And then it was like 90 minutes, 4-0. Okay, right, clean sheet. It was just easy. So so long answer to your question.
I'm loving it.
So that the actual what Arsene did was respected what we were and who we were, and then he just went, just go and play. He never said to me, don't do that, don't go there, pass it here, don't pass it there. He just went, just go and play. So he literally never said anything to me for 5 years. Just went, go on, off you go. And then we just, because he knew, that's the beauty of him, because he's not a coach. He's not a move you around the training pitch coach. He wouldn't put a session on and go, right, Lee, don't want you there, want you there. You do that. It's not his game. That's not what he does. What he does is he creates environments for intelligent players to work it out for themselves, and he can spot a player. He puts those players into an environment with experience around them and goes, right, Ashley Cole's a perfect example. He got in the team, never said a word to him, never coached him, never said, he wouldn't know where Ashley should be. From his experience of watching football, he kind of would, but he's not a fullback. He's not one who'd go, I need you to do this, that, and the other. He would go, he'd put him next to Tony Adams, and Tony Adams would coach him and say, I don't want you there. Come here. I want you to go there. Now you can go there. So Tony would do that, and so that is the environment that Arsene had created. Made Ashley the best left back in the world.
Yeah.
Fact.
Yeah.
over a period of time, he was the best left back in the world. And that's not because Arsene has moved him around and told him how to play fullback. It's because he's given him the opportunity in an environment where he can learn. Because he's an intelligent boy, he learned it himself with Tony and the players in front of him, and became the best. And so that's what Arsene does. And that system can fall down if the experienced players around are not quite good enough, and when the market started to run away from Arsene, he found it more difficult because everyone was tapping into the French market, and he lost his edge a little bit there. But then he created another side when we started to leave, we went invincible, with Sol Campbell and Carlo Torre at the back. So he kind of created Gilberto Silva in front. So he's not a typical coach as a mover around coach. He's a kind of a bigger picture coach than that. But to play under him, just amazing to be in the same dressing room as him and him have a presence and a kind of an understanding of what you're feeling as a player. He was brilliant at that. He kind of knew what you were feeling. He wasn't a great player himself, but he'd been around players long enough and good players to know what they were feeling at certain times, and he'd come up to me sometimes and go, I'm going to rest you on Saturday, and I'd be like, why? You look tired. I go, I'm not tired, I'm fine, playing all right as well, don't leave me out now. And he'd go, no, maybe, I've looked at your numbers. And no, you haven't, we haven't got numbers then. What do you mean? He said, well, I've been watching your training. So I'd have an argument with him. Anyway, he'd leave me out for a game, and then I'd come back, and then and I was playing well. It wasn't like he'd just seen something, a little dip in training maybe that. And when I look back at those times, probably right. And then he'd leave me out, and then the following week I'd be flying again, and then I'd play 15 games without any rest or no injuries. And he was a genius at working that sort of side of the game out, which seems like nothing, but as a manager, a coach, overseeing all of those players doing this, training, it's an art to be able to look at it and go, that's not quite right. It's like looking at all the, when they're making a record and the sound in the booth, and they've got all those switches and lights, and it's all going. I mean, I'd look at that and go, no idea what I'm doing. Why does it sound good? And these guys who know what they're doing will just tweak it a little bit and move it a little bit. And it's what he's doing. He's just tweaking little bits in the team all the time to make it go on the side. So he's not going, move here. George is that type of coach. Yeah. He's going, don't do that. Don't go there. Go here. Do this. Pass there. Do that. So you kind of learn. But once you know that, then Arsene comes in and just puts all the sort of all the sugar on it, if you like, and go off you go. And then gave me players to play with, like, brought Nicholas Anelka in. He was unplayable in '98. Yeah. It's like, who's this kid? Never spoke to us for the whole season. It's like we didn't even know he could speak. Tony Adams used to threaten him every day and say, if you don't say hello to me in the morning, me and you are going to fall out. He used to go in every morning and go, morning, Nicholas. Nicholas used to go, wanted to speak to him.
Wow.
And he was like, what's wrong with him? Because he was really shy, So in the end, Tony left him alone, and then we just go, he speaks on a Saturday. He just whacks a load of goals in, and we're like, and then he'd walk off the pitch, and we go, see you, Nicholas. See you Monday for training. And he'd come in, just do his work, and he was unplayable. And Petit and Vieira, I literally give £100 million each for both of them to be playing in the team now. Massive holes in the team in that midfield area. Them two would just stand there and just don't move, just move up and down like that, and then go over together instead of crossing over and going in each other's. That's going on at the moment. It's just really hard to watch when you played with players like that who knew where to be. As good as players as we've got at the club. Those players that I played with knew what to do. It didn't have to worry about holes. There was never any holes. There's holes all over the place now, and it's frustrating to watch, but it is what it is. And but it's hard to know what we had and go, I don't know.
Yeah.
Could talk all day about holes.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. One final question that I've got
Yeah.
to ask him: what's your take on Emery's team at the moment? What's your take on Emery?
Well, I'm a big believer. I've always say this, that managers should be given time. Managers, you know, if if it was left up to me, I think managers going into a club should sign a minimum of 2.5-year contracts or 3-year contracts, and they should be given that time, because if you're going in somewhere and you've got new ideas to get over to players and bring your own players in, that ain't going to take 5 minutes. So that's never going to happen. You know, manager will be sacked within months of signing. We've seen that already. He's in his 2nd season, so already now these people and me in the media, I have to be careful that I don't forget that side of it. My professional, being a player, how long it takes training wise and understanding managers and getting it right, how long that takes. I have to, because it's easy for me to jump on that bandwagon and go, well, it's not happening, it's a 1.5 years, get him out. That'd be easy. That's the easy way out. The difficult thing for the club and the fans and everybody is to be patient, but it's hard because you what you're seeing is the end product of what they're doing from Monday to Friday, and you're seeing the end product on a Saturday and going, well, that happened last week.
Yeah.
So what they've done this, you know, that's where we're at the moment, because there's been a repetitive, there's been mistakes made on a regular basis, both, in my opinion, tactically and player mistake-wise, that I go, hang on a minute. So you're kind of we're in that mode. I'm in that mode at the moment, going, you know, I watched the game last night and the 2 free kicks, great, and it's brilliant to see him scoring, and I think he will be a force to be reckoned with at some point, on a more regular basis. But ultimately, I don't look at any of that stuff. I'm not bothered about that. What bothers me is how many chances we're giving away and how open we are in the midfield. Yeah. And we can all criticise the defenders, and obviously I can be critical more than most, because I kind of I can feel it as well as see it. But they are. You could put our back line in there right now, fit. 30 years of age, 29, 30 years of age, the best we ever were, and we would be struggling a bit, because they're exposed from the minute we go over the halfway line and the midfield and what's going on, and then it flips back to the manager and going, right, this is happening too often. Liverpool game, Watford game, Villa game at home. You add all the chances up, the European game, you start adding the chances up we're giving away. Not necessarily, goals, because goals is bad enough, but the chances we're giving away, you cannot go on like this. It's got to stop. And the midfield is bereft of any understanding of what they're doing when they're closing ball down. We watched last night, there was 3 of them closing the ball down up front. Lacazette's going, Martinelli's going, they're closing the ball down, and then we're kind of, right, get on with that. And I'm looking at the camera, because I'm obviously not there. I'm looking at the camera, getting ready to start going this way, so I can see what's going on there. I'm not seeing anything. I'm seeing players crossing over when they're closing. People in recent games, players running past Xhaka to close a midfield player down and leaving a space. Well, how does he allow that to happen? How's he allowing a player to go past him to close someone down? Stay there, Layth. I'll do that, and you stay there. That's pretty simple. If you've got 2 spaces marked and then one of them goes like that, then there's a space there. So how do you stop that happening? Well, I just move over and you move into my space, and you shuffle over. That's schoolboy stuff. Yeah. But with the amount of space in our midfield, the Watford game, my God. The management of that game, from the sideline, the manager, and from the players on the pitch, some experienced, was the worst I've seen for, I can't remember when. The worst game management, being 2-0 up. In a million years, you cannot lose that lead. Yeah. In a million, against Watford, when you're under a bit of pressure, you you manage the game like that is almost criminal. Getting 5 players in the box when you're 2-0 up and you're under a bit of pressure. Why get 5 players in the box? Just somebody stay in midfield, and then they get hit on the counter attack, and then Luis gives a penalty away on the edge of his box, and I've been more critical of Luis than anyone. And I go, what's he supposed to do? It's a terrible tackle. What is he? You watch where everybody is but we have a chance at that end, and then we give a penalty away there. So how does that happen? When we're 2-1 up, that is because the penalty was the equaliser. I forgot the debacle of kicking it out from the goal kick. Well, that's another story. But that we got hit on the counter attack at 2-0, 2-1, and 2-0 and 2-2. We could have lost that game. Got hit on the counter attack with 5 players in the box. One of those players was Ozil, quite a lot of the time. Why there wasn't a rant here? Why there wasn't a substitution? There was substitutions, but he stayed on, and eventually he went off. But they did like for like in midfield. It's like, no, it's not a personnel problem. Take Ozil off, put a midfield player on. Maitland-Niles, I felt absolutely, I wanted to go on and give him a hug. Like, he's got 2v1 on the side the whole game, and everyone's going, oh, he had a terrible game. Well, no, why I'd have had a terrible game? He had 2 people to mark. Yeah. And they just kept switching it out there. Why were we switching it out there? Because we played a narrow diamond in midfield, and we didn't have any midfield players. You got Xhaka going to close down past somebody else and leaving it. I mean, it was just like, and that's been seen from the side, and it went on and on and on. It went on at 2-0, 2-1, 2-2. So it's not like it just happened. It went on for the whole of the second half. You've got to see that. Yeah. Somebody has to see that and go, do you know what? Just play 4-5-1 for 10 minutes. Yeah. Just go like that, 4-5. And they would run out of ideas. The only player they had that day was Deulofeu, who was running amok down that side, cutting inside, taking outside. Maitland-Niles had twisted blood. He didn't know where he was. Wasn't getting any help, no protection. And our midfield was just playing narrow. Ozil and 2 strikers were walking back. At one point, they were holding hands, the 3 of them. You could have literally thrown a coat over them, walking back at the halfway line. And our midfield was going like that, trying to get back to a defence who had 4v4 running at them. The only one place to go from there, and that's back to your goal. You can't you can't go to the ball. So you end up dropping off into your own box, and then Luis gives a penalty away. It's his fault, the penalty, but it's not his fault that he can't go to the ball. Yeah. He's got no. But it is his fault that he hasn't told the midfield to go. These are experienced players. Yeah. So if that's happening in our back 4, Tony Adams is going, whoa, Patrick, where are you going? Patrick, where are you going? Yeah. So, why are you pressing the ball? Just stay there for 5 minutes. Yeah. Torreira I did 3 of Uruguay's games in the World Cup. I just stood in front of the back 4. Didn't move. Yeah. Just went like that the whole time. And he was brilliant for Uruguay. And then we sign him and we play him in a different position, and then he ends up vacating where he's supposed to be. So that comes down to coaching and management. So the answer to your question is, it's a time thing, but there's also a ticking clock, and I'm not the presser of that button that decides when there's a change of players or there's a change of manager. I think there's still a bit more time to go.
Fantastically, honestly, it's been an absolute honour and a pleasure and an insight. It's been absolutely great fun. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for your time. One last question: What's next for Lee Dixon? Then obviously you're making a career as a pundit now, but you're lost to football if you're not coaching, having listened.
But I've still got non-grey hair at the moment, so I know yours was awful.
Well, at least you got hair. To be fair.
Yeah, it's not necessarily. I've been out of the game too long to get. I do a bit of mentoring for fullbacks here and there, and I do a bit of coaching over in America. But I do love the TV side of it. I love the broadcasting. I love the ability, the opportunity it gives me to share stuff like this on. But the actual going and training, unless Unai gives me a call and gets me in as fullback coach, you never know.
You never know. Honestly, Lee, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure, mate.
Absolutely, really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for your time. Once an Arsenal man, always an Arsenal man, eh?
Absolutely, up the Gunners.
Up the Gunners. Cheers.
My pleasure.